feeling that you get by completing a new space and getting to exist within that new space, it's going to evoke emotions and thoughts and ideas and dreams in you that may have existed, but for whatever reason have been buried deep within.
What if the key to transformation lies in shifting your perspective? Hi, I'm Dr. Payal Beri. Welcome to Reframing Perspectives. Every conversation here is about one thing: how empathy changes the way we lead, connect, and create impact. Each episode, we get to explore deep, authentic conversations designed to expand your mindset. Whether you're looking to transform your leadership, deepen your relationships within your circle, your community, and friends, or gain clarity in your own personal growth, each episode will inspire you to see things differently and take action. If you're ready to challenge your thinking and embrace transformation, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. I'm a firm believer that our homes are our sanctuary. It's where we really come to reset and relax and just take a pause. And it's where you can just like let all the walls down. And how many times is it that, when you think about going to your grandma's house, your mom's house, to your friend's house, and you walk in and you just like feel their presence? You feel like, yep, this is so reflective of who they are. So to create that space, right? It's more than just the furniture pieces and the wallpaper and the design. It's about the representation of who this person is, their story. And so to call in an interior designer, I believe, is calling somebody into one of the most intimate spaces. And what I loved about my conversation with Jazmyne today, who's a phenomenal interior designer, is she focuses on truly about making the home and caring about it more than just a pretty room, but giving people a place to heal, to feel good, inspired, and just let their walls down for them to become vulnerable and acceptable to be vulnerable in their spaces. And her own experience with what it means to tell a story about the person, a story about their family. They're holding that space, with their ancestral, herself being a multicultural, biracial, mixed race person. She found it really important that when she steps into someone's space, it's about encountering the spirit of that home, the spirit of the story of this person. And so I'm so excited to talk about interior design and what it means to tell stories from your home. Hi, Jasmine.
Hi,
So
Pyle.
excited to have you. Oh my gosh, like your journey. And I've been so just admired like your whole experience. The Jasmine that I knew 2 years ago, 3 years ago, is definitely a different Jasmine today. So I'm so excited for the listeners to really hear about your journey and talking about interior design, which is such an intimate experience, but people think of it more as this like luxury experience. And I can't wait to dive into all of this with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And you're right. The Jasmine you knew 2 years ago is very different from the Jasmine today. So thank you for inviting me and letting me come share my experiences with you.
Yeah. So, I want to just dive right in and just talk about your own personal experience to what I always consider is your home is your sanctuary. And coming home, like when you're out in the world and there's a lot of distress or, work, and now work is kind of tied back into the house as well. But
Hmm.
typically, like when you go out and experience the world, right? Whether it's a dinner party, whether it's traveling, whether it's anything, this feeling of coming home and what it does to your internal body as well, your nervous system, and just feeling like, oh, my bed, like this, my space, that you have in the safety that your body feels by having your home is so powerful. And I would love to first just ask you, like, what does home mean to you?
Mm, yeah, a lot of good points. Home for me means finding safety within myself. While the environment of home is easily what we think about when we think of interior design or like the physical home, a lot of that home begins with me and like within the body. And so, as an interior designer and like even practicing interior design, a lot of where I'm gathering like resources or knowledge or ways of movement and even inspiration comes from like what's going on inside of the people that I'm getting to design for and with.
Yeah. And what was that like for you? Like, if you were to think about that safety, right? Like, for you to work with people coming into their most intimate spaces, that requires such deep vulnerability, Like, I think a lot of times when we look at HGTV shows, like, we'll look at, like, Fixer
Yep.
Upper and, the 2 brothers who changed it, Property Brothers, and we look at, like, "Wow, look at how they transformed this," but it's more than that, right? Like, they've definitely, like, glamorized the experience, but
100%.
when it comes to, like, someone's inviting you into that safe space, and I can imagine that for you to help your clients feel safe to trust you in
Yeah.
their most intimate space, that required you to do a lot of your own internal digging with what safety means for you as what I remember, obviously is like corporate worker, climbing the ladder, doing all these things, and just following this path that your parents set out as immigrant parents do, or just minority parents do, of work hard, keep your head down, just be humble about it. But you had bigger dreams, but you had to find alignment, right? With
Yeah.
how do I reframe what and honor my creativity and honor the way that I want to serve people, but not feel ashamed of leaving this path that's been traditionally carved out for me.
Yeah, yeah. There's 2 stories that come up thinking about, like, how I find safety within home. And before I even talk about the second one, I think it comes down again, like that personal. Growing up, I'm one of those people who's like, yeah, my vocation when I was younger, I want to do interior design. That's like what I see. I didn't really understand that though until several years going into college studying architecture when I had 4 concussions within a 20-month span. And even then,
Wow.
as a student studying architecture with the intention to eventually go into interior design, I had that, like, surface level HGTV romanticized idea of what it meant. Because at that time, as a healthy, able-bodied person having no limitations, that's how it's been painted for me, that's what I've known. I wasn't necessarily exposed to interior design or even people who were in the interior design space who looked like me. And so, yeah, I had a romanticized version of what that would look like. But it wasn't until the concussion, specifically the 4th concussion, because the first 3, I had that mentality, especially thinking about, like, my parents, my mom being from the Philippines, my dad being a African American Black man from New Jersey. They've always instilled that, you work hard, you're consistent, you just put your head down no matter what, and you don't necessarily check
Right.
in with yourself, right? And that 4th concussion was unexpected. I thought at the time, I've already had 3 concussions within 8 months. I'm out in the clear, what else can happen to me? And a year later from my 2nd and 3rd concussion, I got an unexpected 4th concussion, and I remember at that time, like, everything kind of just unraveled. Like, I thought I did enough healing, I thought I was gonna, I could just go forth with the architecture, and it was at that point that I was confined to my bedroom for 3 weeks. And in terms of resources at the time, this is back in 2013, the bridge between athletics, collegiate athletics, and research in terms of concussions, the impact, the long-term impacts, there was no bridge that really existed yet. So in terms of how to recover, that was a pretty siloed experience. I was going between my primary care doctor as well as my, like, educators, my parents, just trying to, like, get everyone together and say, like, "Okay, how am I gonna recover?" The only answer at that time was confine yourself to a dark room, and because I wanted to go into interior design, like, my room was my safe place, and at that point, I realized that what I've known about interior design, while a lot of it has stayed true, it really wasn't the root of, like, why I wanted to go into interior design or what interior design is. Being in that room for 3 weeks, isolated, not being able to go out, not having the ability, made me so sensitive to, like, how we really design our spaces, and I would say, like, that is, like, the piece, like the differentiable piece that I have that I really hold on to when I'm connecting with new clients or on new projects because I know that there's a deeper story. There's like layers to why someone is embarking on an interior design journey. Like, even if it's exciting, you like kind of like HGTV, you have this new home, you have this like exciting, investment,
Yeah,
that
your new
what
chapter.
what you want it to
Yeah.
look like. There's still layers to that. And so to your second point, how do you unravel with the clients and like allow them to feel safe? I actually don't talk about interior design at all. And that's even
Mhm.
though interior design is something that I say I do. I mean, it's the easiest way to categorize, I'm an interior designer, I do homes. I don't lead with that in any questions. Common questions that I ask is like, where do you like to travel? What has made you happy? What's an experience that has brought you joy or not joy lately?
Mm.
How do you currently, gather with people? Are they someone that tends to protect themselves and they like to gather with people in public spaces at restaurants or at other people's homes? Or are they someone that likes to, have intimate gatherings or large gatherings at home? Those answers to those type of questions allows me better insight to like, how are we going to navigate really getting to the heart of why you want to design your home?
Wow, so much to uncover and unpack there. All I'm hearing, Jasmine, is that you've really used your own personal experience. And in a way, it's like if you didn't have that fourth concussion, and
Right.
if you didn't have that time, you may not have approached your work in this space in the same way. You may have actually taken it from a more intellectual place
100%.
versus what I'm hearing is that you're taking it more from a human place, a more of a relationship place, and storytelling, storytelling of this person's life and experience and what it means. And I love that you mentioned that you don't start with, hi, I'm an interior designer and I'm going to come in and I'm going to take measurements and let's like, what are your favorite color schemes? And it's just like, no, like, who are you? What story is going to live in these walls? And when someone walks in, are they going to feel like, can they feel your energy and can they feel your spirit? And I think that's what's so powerful is that you're leading with heart.
Yeah, 100% leading with heart. One of the projects that means a lot to me was one of my first projects since embarking with my new firm with Jasmine Design Studio was this client who was super excited. I had originally turned them down because at the time when we had first met, I was still working in corporate doing the interior design on the side. And I had respectfully declined taking on this project. But they came back to me around 3 months later and they had said, are you ready now? And I said, okay, if these projects are boomeranging their way back into my hands, then there must be something like I may not feel ready, but the universe, spirit is saying,
Yes.
hey, it's time for you to take this on. And I remember
Yeah.
walking through their project with them, their home, and talking about the different furniture pieces that they've had and like how they've gotten it there. And there was this one comment that they said where they said it was their bedroom. And I think of bedrooms as the most intimate parts of the home. And funny enough, they're usually the last spaces to get designed. And I can attest to this too, because I'm guilty of this too. We get caught
That's
up
so
with the
interesting. Why is that?
uh, I don't know. I'm gonna say I'm still figuring that one out as well because I
Yeah.
noticed that we're off, like, at least in my experience, and even personally, I see the designing of living rooms, kitchens, dining spaces, even offices, like places that we're working or putting on a facade or a gathering with it's all external, right? Whereas like our bedroom, we're not necessarily inviting, even if they're your closest, like your best friend, your family, no one's coming into your bedroom. Yet those often are the last places to allocate money towards, investment towards, or even intention to design. Like they're usually a phase two, phase three project.
Wow, that's so interesting. What's going through my head when you're talking about this is exactly what you talked about. It's like the living room and the kitchen, it's like it's this mask, it's the performance, it's the external validation, it's the like I'm on stage and here's my, here's look at this, and it's like you're gaining that approval, but
Mhm.
then walking into your room is like going backstage, and it's where
Exactly.
you can decompress, and it's where you can be you, where you can take the mask off, and that is the most vulnerable. And tying it back to what you said earlier about what you were raised with and the narrative that you were raised with about keep your head down, just work and, keep going. And you don't need to check in with yourself, right? A bedroom is where you check in. A lot of times, even as psychologists, we say that don't put a TV in your bedroom,
Yeah.
that your bedroom is supposed to be technology free. That's how you're going to have the best sleep hygiene and all this stuff. And so if you're taking away all the distractions, you're having to be with yourself, you're having to be with your thoughts. You're having to be with, how do I soothe myself to sleep on a hard day? How do I function? How do I soothe this anxiety? And it all happens in this room, in this space. And so it's almost like a metaphor, symbolism for the way that we even operate in our day to day life.
Yeah, yeah, and even sharing this right now, I'm recognizing that that is probably where I get most of my information for the type of client, like how they want to design, what type of support they need. Because with this particular project, they had gone through a divorce long time ago. So the
Mhm.
furniture that was in their room was about 20 years old from their divorce. Can you imagine how much life is held in that room or energy that's held in that room?
Oof,
Even
the
though
baggage, the
they
wounds.
exactly, even though they're in a completely new space, they're empowered, they've been, really focusing on their well-being, internal, spiritual, physical, like, unconsciously, because I wouldn't say it was a conscious decision, but unconsciously, that they were still holding furniture from 20 years, 20 plus years ago.
That's wild. How would you then explain people who hoard? When they are not willing to, like, they say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, come on in, like, we want different energy," but then everything is sentimental. Even something that was like the wrapping of a package, was sentimental. How do you help them uncover what that actually really means for them?
Discern, it's a lot of listening. I think something that's doesn't get shared, like, as much as I would like about interior design is that we're often observing, like, passive and active body language. It's one thing to say you're a hoarder, right? And that you're sentimental, these things mean a lot, but then watching someone actually speak about it and you're watching real life processing as they're speaking about items that they thought they had attachment to, when they start to explain why they have attachment to, I often see that it's been easier, like more comfortable to hold on to it and say that it's important rather than like just letting it go. And so, at least in my experience, I've dealt with a handful of hoarders, but really it's just been more, I've noticed it's more of a comfort level of like, I
Mm.
hoard this because it's comfortable. Once I start to tell you why I have it, it sounds kind of silly. And
Yeah.
and then at that point, there's a bit of a discernment because as an interior designer, even though I am in your intimate space and whatnot, that's when we start to bring in an external partner like an organizer and say like, okay, we're recognizing that there is room to start to like let go, right? It's
Mhm.
the metaphor is like, I don't know, working out, right? Like working out,
Yeah.
eventually once you get through that first month, you'll start to feel better. But those first couple of weeks, it's torture. You're barely walking up the stairs. You don't want to lift your arm and whatnot. I think you can translate the same thing to interior design and like going through your home, especially if you kind of identify as a hoarder. When you have to start to hold yourself accountable to speaking about it to, especially a stranger, someone that you don't necessarily know as much, even though we're going to eventually build this rapport, build a deeper relationship. I still am a stranger initially. And once you're starting to like say that out loud, it starts to remove the layers of like, okay, maybe this doesn't have as much sentiment. It's actually been more of a comfort zone. And now if I want to move forward to what I say I want, which is that, beautiful functional space, then I have to decide, am I willing to really keep with it or could we explore parting ways?
Yeah, it's like that's where the action comes in. That's
Yeah.
where the real work comes in, right? It's like we can talk about our workout plan all day long, but then at some point you gotta do it. So I know something that we've talked about offline is
Yeah.
just even bringing in when you're in the home your story from the sense of like, for example, like, when I think about the home that I'm gonna one day decorate and design,
Yeah.
being a third culture kid is
Uh,
a really big part of my identity. It's that I'm Indian, but I never grew up in India, but I spent time going back to visit, and I definitely feel very strongly about some of the cultural elements that I get to carry on with it. But I grew up in the Middle East. And so there's a different type of like love and affection that I have for Egypt and that I have for my life there and just the friendships that I still have till today that started in the Middle East, when I was in kindergarten. And then, of course, my life here in America and just like the global essentially experience, right? How do you help clients tie in the different parts of them? Because me, with someone who's like super ADD and has all these different versions of myself. And I'm like, oh my God, I would love to have like a South Asian Art Deco style. But then I really love like, this mid-century piece of things. But then I really love it's like, how do you help someone really get to the essence of like when they're trying to like kind of capture their whole life
yeah.
identity into this space? How do you help them like capture that?
Yeah, I love this question. This is one of the most exciting parts of my process that like engaging with new clients and just like prospects in general. To your point, what you said, it's like start exactly where you are. Like I might be the designer, but I fully believe that everyone I engage with is also a designer in their own sense. Maybe we don't implement it, right? But like empowering you from the get-go to believe that like your vocabulary and your idea of what you desire is enough. And so even naming your styles, what modern means to you is going to be a very different definition to someone else. So hearing that like Southeast Asian like desire and wanting that Middle East infusion and now living in America, right? We'll take exactly that. And like from there, I usually say like, okay, depending on what our conversations have been like, if I'm noticing that you're a little more shy, it might be a little more easier. Like share your favorite pictures of your travel experiences lately or where you like to
Mhm.
eat. If you're someone that feels like more, I'm ready to dive deep off the deep end, it's like, okay, maybe a little more intimate. Uh, share pictures of your like homes that bring you joy or aspects of family gatherings. What do you like to wear? Like, what's your favorite outfit in your closet? Like things that might be a little more intimate. From there, we'll start to extract, like, if I see some patterns between uh, your family home and how that like translates to your wardrobe and how you like to like express yourself. I'll start to then gather like fabrics. And so we're not, even though we start with like the three adjectives that you just shared, for example, we then go and like, okay, it's like, what's the most easily accessible for you to be able to show me beyond design, right? Like, again, we're not even
Mhm.
talking about interior design. We're really just talking about your experiences, how you express yourself, what you like. And then from there,
Yeah.
I'll start to curate these personal kits. And this is exciting for me because it becomes a lot more tangible for the clients. I usually bring like inspiration photos based on what they sent and fabrics because, again, like what's considered soft, like a high pile velvet versus a low pile velvet versus the composition of the velvet will be soft to one client and like the other client will say no, like it's not soft, plus I hate the directional aspect of it. But from there it's like we start to develop a vocabulary that's unique to you and unique to that
Yeah.
person. And I really appreciate this because then it's like, okay, we're starting to build this like aligned like vocabulary. It's like you don't feel like there's a barrier of like, how are we going to get to where I imagine to, to the final outcome? It's like
Right.
we're getting to a point where it's like, okay, these are the color palettes that like you like. And the reason why you like them is because it's obvious in like your family
Yeah.
home and what the colors that you
Yeah.
wear every day and like the foods or travel that you gravitate towards.
Right.
And we're going to be, using these type of fabrics because based on what you're feeling and seeing and whatnot. From there, it starts to become a lot more natural because, like, even if you're like, "Okay, I have ADD, I have no attention span," it's like, I personally, because of my experiences, and I also think about my mom in this sense as well, like, English was not her first language. She came to America as, an adult in her mid-20s, and so I'm always thinking about that, like, should someone who didn't grow up in this space understand, like, where we are within the process? It doesn't matter
Mm.
if you've been exposed or not exposed, you feel like you can be brought along, and by that time that it's time to find, like, art or accessories that really talk to your space and, like, feel curated, uh, it feels like it's just built up over time.
That's incredible. All I'm hearing in that is like familiarity, right? And it's
Yeah.
like we have our internal conditioning of like what feels warm to us, what feels like this is going to send us into a spiral. And it's like, why? And it's almost like you're uncovering stories. I mean, you're like anyone who does work, like, whether you're a real estate agent, whether you're interior design, whether you're in any kind of client servicing work, I feel like is a form of therapeutic work you're doing as
Yeah.
well. Right? There's so much uncovering that you're having there. As you're moving now deeper into your work and supporting the types of clients that you support, what do you find are the types of like your mission with the work that you're
Mm,
doing? And, your mission with the type of clients that you want to support, and the impact that you want to have for them. Like what does that journey feel like for you as you're moving and getting in more comfortable in this space?
yeah. Oh, the journey for me, it's interesting. Right now, I'm at this pivotal moment of going through a brand refresh and website and thinking about intentionally scaling next year. And I feel like personally, I'm at a tipping point of like, it's not about working harder or smarter. It's about what does it look like for me to show up more authentically as myself. And so when I think about my mission in terms of Jasmine Design Studio and, interior design or just design in general, one thing that has been the through line from the get-go and even now as I'm, in this discomfort of showing up more as myself is, how do I leave you better off than I found you? Like, that's the key that I leave them with. I say, "You're not gonna only learn a lot with me, you're gonna have a toolkit that's gonna serve you beyond our time together." Like, you'll always have me as your support beyond the project, you can come back, but I make it my mission to also empower my clients enough that even if you're not a designer by trade or have a design sense, you feel empowered enough to ask questions or like good questions that can get you clear answers. Because I think too often, especially like marginalized communities going into interior design, there's the ability to get taken advantage of easily because there's just so much unknown within the space. And so yeah, as I'm moving forward, it's really important to me to ensure that whoever's coming through, or even like whether they work with me or not, they're just inquiring, like, I want you to feel more empowered than before you talked to me or came through JDS.
That's incredible. I love the fact that it's not about what's driving you. It's not necessarily about how many more homes can we decorate and how do we scale to become an X figure company and things like that. But it's really about intentionality of how you're leaving the person to feel. And again, it's like your work is in that intimate space. And so it's so powerful that that is what you're leaving with. It's like, again, it just speaks to your empathy. It speaks to your compassion that you've like
Thanks.
tied deeply into your work, and you mentioned just now about even the intentionality of working with people who belong to marginalized communities. Like, what does that look like for you in your work? I mean, I think it's, I can say fairly that when you come from minority communities that are either, first time immigrants coming here, the idea and concept of hiring an interior designer is just such a far thought. That's something that wealthy people do. That's something
Yeah.
that luxury does, right? Like, what do you mean? Here's a couch. It fits here, just done, right? And so there's a mindset block of the scarcity of money, the scarcity of what it means, and also like again, privacy of this is my home that you're walking into, and you're going to tell
Yes.
me that you know how to take care of this better than I do. So if there's a reframe and there's a way that you want to bring intentionality to individuals that belong to those communities, to how they can reframe their relationship with their home and their relationship with design, what would that mean and look like?
Mm, there's layers to this one too. So it's, I think,
Peel the onion.
literally, because transparently, this is something that I I wouldn't even call myself an expert. This is something that I am approaching with curiosity every day because I would say about half of my clientele, and even just to like rewind a bit, before starting my own Jasmine Design Studio, the previous firm designer that I worked with, we were working in a very affluent, primarily white space. I mean, the designer who spearheaded that firm looks the opposite of me, like straight hair, blue eyes. And so, in terms of the type of clientele that we were mostly attracting, they looked similar. And even like a side note, like wearing my hair like this curly, like wasn't necessarily welcomed within that space. And like I verbatim had some experiences of which, I showed up like this, my most authentic and in my opinion, like professional self,
Yeah.
and that still wasn't accepted. And so even now, I have clients that have come from that space, and I have this interesting intersection where I have people who have been exposed, who are affluent, may not have worked with an interior designer, but does for the most part fit the checklist of the type of clients or projects I had before. And then just by showing up as me and like also the fact that I represent, this other side, I have been attracting naturally people who haven't been exposed to interior design. They only know architecture or interior design because they've heard of me through referrals or they've seen me or seen other people who look like me and decided to give me a chance, right? And so
Mhm.
it's been interesting because I recognize with this subset of group, and especially as I hope to expand more into that space, I recognize that, like, I can't assume when it's gonna come up, but I try to make room recognizing that it's gonna come up, whether it comes up in the very beginning because you don't really trust interior design, you desire it, but you're skeptical because you don't really understand the full value, and part of that I've recognized is because you don't really even understand what interior design is. You know what interior decorating is, which is what kinda HGTV
Mm.
shows, right? Where interior
Mhm.
design is the art and the science of design.
Mm.
So not only are we going to make your space feel beautiful, but we're going to be very intentional about setting it up to entertain, live, heal in a way that fits you and your family, right? Whereas some clients within this space, it might be down the line. We could have everything right. And like that's something that I've been learning. It's like I feel very proud and secure about the type of systems and processes we've set in place. And that's been hard too, is like going against the grain. Like a lot of time we're thinking about volume and scaling really quickly. And instead I've been honing in on the process, the user experience because of this group in mind. And for some clients, they might be good, but then when it comes to the actual change, the implementation, they've paid for the product. Now they're just in a waiting period. And now it comes to installation. And now,
Mhm.
this it's like this buildup. It's been, how do I say it? Like, not monopoly money, but it's like this idea that it's been like pretend and I'm just
Yeah,
paying
yeah,
for this
yeah.
and I know. And then it's like at that point when, a lot of change is happening. They're having to move out of their home. They're moving into a new home. They're seeing, paint and wallpaper and new size furniture. That brings up another set of emotions that they may and most of the time are unfamiliar with. And, like, that's when I'm
Mm.
like, I try to make room and space knowing that, like, at any point in the process, the moment, I call it a moment, is gonna happen, and it's like, how do I give space for them? Because it's less about, like, what we're doing and what the process is. It's more so like, this is new experience. This is a new emotion, probably an unfamiliar emotion. And oftentimes the client doesn't really know that that's what's happening. They're just like, I'm trying to take control. And it's like,
Yeah.
how do I just build that guardrail? That's something that we've really been intentional in design. It's like, how do I build a guardrail to allow them to like have that loss of control, still feel like they're in control, and know that, like, eventually they'll get regulated and start to enjoy their space.
Wow. Yeah, definitely the layers there. It's just I can imagine that for them it's also that holding on period of what I really feel coming from this story is that you're helping them dream
Yeah,
and in a way that maybe they didn't think they were allowed to.
yeah, and it doesn't matter if like, I see this across the board with, like, all types of clients because it doesn't matter how much you've been exposed to interior design. It doesn't matter if it's your first project or your 4th project, like some of my past clients, like, the feeling that you get by completing a new space and getting to exist within that new space is the same. It's going to evoke emotions and thoughts and ideas and dreams in you that may have existed, but for whatever reason have been buried deep within.
Yeah.
And I just notice it on I'd say a more intense level with people who look like us or who haven't had exposure to the interior design process.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there about worthiness that comes up, right? And it's that even the process that you're talking about where they're actually seeing the walls being stripped or new furniture coming in and paint and all this stuff is I think we don't talk often about like even the grief of losing that identity that we've been holding on to
Mhm.
as we're coming into the new place. I always call it like the middle ground is like the place of ick, right? It's like we're
Yes.
not fully immersed into that new version and we haven't let go of the old version of us, but
Yeah.
even within a home, I can imagine as excited as they are, but then once they start settling in, it's this, like, feeling a stranger in your own space, like, you feel home, you feel all this stuff, but you're feeling this, like, I now have to, like, I wanna shift, like, your body language shifts, like, maybe now in this new kitchen, the way you're cooking, your confidence, the way you're more maybe bold with your recipes because of what the space inspires you to do. But at the same time, it's like, I can imagine the level of grief that you can feel about
Yeah.
me having to declutter this or me having to let go of this. Like it's processing all of that. And for, for minorities and for individuals who are, whether they're immigrants or, marginalized, it's also this, I think that there's a pride in holding on to the grit,
Mhm.
right? And there's a pride in holding on to the, like, what it took me, right? If you even think about blue collar America. Like, it's all about, like, I am proud to be this
Yeah.
because of, like, I'm proud of the hard work. I'm proud of this. So it's like shifting out of that and shifting into, like, I can be proud of that, and I can also accept that I've earned this of what I'm doing now and how I'm living. It doesn't mean that I'm suddenly a changed human of what I value. It's like I'm bringing my values in more intentionally.
Yeah. Yeah, and a good anecdote that I have about this is I recently had a conversation with my mom, and my mom, to this day, like, this is fun, like, I'm an interior designer by trade, but my mom has not let me touch the space of our home. And so it's funny because it's like,
Good.
she knows she's, like, one of my biggest cheerleaders, she sends me all this inspiration, and then she asks for my help, but, like, when we talk about grief and the attachment to our home, she's just not there yet, and that's, like, one of those funny things, it's like, "Do you take me seriously as a designer or not?" Because
I
uh,
feel like this is just status quo for families where,
yes.
like, even for me, as a psychologist and having done this work in human behavior, and the minute we're talking in the family, not necessarily about like our dynamics, but like, dynamics in general, and I say something, it is immediately like dismissed, and
100%.
they'll look at some external person to be like, oh, yeah, 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 what they said. I'm like, sure, because I did not just say that about 2 days ago, but
Exactly.
um, yeah, I totally get that, but no, that's a great perspective. So last question for you is that as you journey forward in this, and what would be a reframe that you hope communities like ours and, as you're embarking on supporting and empowering them,
Mhm.
what is a reframe that you want them to really take in for themselves of what that experience could be for them?
A reframe. What I tell people who haven't embarked within design and interior design in general is think about it like investing or like working out or, really embarking on a new habit, embarking in interior design is not an overnight, quick, easy fix. It's been romanticized time and time again through social media, HGTV, and other platforms. It is something that you can step into, but you're not gonna feel the ROI until later down the line. But it's worth
Mm,
every penny that you choose to invest in, whether you do it all at once or one room at a time, or even just picking a piece of furniture that really aligns with who you are. That ROI will continue to compound like slowly. And before you know it, not only because it's an inside process that will slowly show itself outwards, and so, yeah, that's the one thing I would hope people to live like, it's it's not an overnight thing like it's made up to be. It's slow and intentional, and eventually that ROI will be felt.
amazing. Thank you so much, Jasmine. I love the journey that we talk about. Close friends of mine know this, that I am obsessed with real estate, and that's my joy outside of social impact work and empathy work. Is my guilty pleasure is, watching real estate shows, listening to podcasts
Yes.
on interior design and homes. And, I am definitely guilty of HGTV obsessions and things like that. So to have you come and actually share it from this perspective of storytelling and from perspective of like just your human experience, and bringing your empathy into it and reframing it for people to see this as an intimate experience of their story and their sanctuary and their legacy of their home and their
Mhm.
family is so powerful. So thank you so much. And I'm so excited to see your journey grow and for you to like just expand on this mission of human relationship.
Yeah, thank you, Payal, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, wonderful. And where can everyone find you?
Oh my goodness, that's exciting. So you can find me on Instagram, Jasmine_Simmons. And eventually I will want to hope to like have more educational content resources for people to even be able to embark on their own interior design journey. But also you can find me on my website, jasminedesignstudio.com.
Amazing. Well, we'll definitely have those resources with the podcast episode, but so grateful for you. And I can't wait for all these listeners to really take in what it means and for them to just like sit in their home, maybe with silence, and experience their home for like, how do I feel here? And create that safety for them. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
I really hope that you enjoy this episode, and I just have one favor to ask you. If you could just make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a rating and review, it's going to help us tremendously to make sure that we reach as many people as possible that you think should be listening to our episodes. I'll see you next week for another episode, and thank you so much for leaving that one review, that one subscription, and sharing this with your friends.